Right, welcome to the decision session of the Executive Member for Housing and Safer Neighbourhoods. I'm Councillor Denise Crackhill, the Executive Member, and we have several officers here to present the items on the agenda as well. Item number one, I have no declarations of interest other than what's already on my register of interests. Item number two is to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, which was the 15th of April 2021, and I'm happy to approve and unusually to actually be able to sign those minutes. So I'll just do that because we're actually here in person. So item number three, I'm told we have no public participation, do we? No. So that takes us on to item number four, enforcement of minimum energy efficiency standards in the private rented sector. And so is this going to be introduced by Ruth? Thank you.
Hello. I'm going to call these the minimum energy efficiency standard regulations. I'm going to call them the MEES from now on, if that's okay. This is a report prepared by Jed Smallfield, a member of the Housing Standards and Adaptations team. He's led the year-long project funded by BEIS. To give the executive member some background, the government introduced a requirement for the private rented sector properties to have valid EPC since 2008. An EPC rating is shown on a certificate for the property based on a rating of A to G, and A being the most energy efficient property and a G being the worst property. And it must be produced by an accredited assessor. The MEES regulations have been phased in since 2018, and since April 2020, the worst or the least energy efficient properties, F and Gs, should not have been rented out unless they've been specifically exempted and put on a register. The regulations are complex, and York, like many, have struggled to enforce the regulations, which is why BEIS back in 2020 funded a year-long project in York. We were one of 12 other local authorities that took part in this project, and the project was initially supposed to start in April 2020, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, was delayed to start until July 2020. There's been quite a lot of successes, I would say, that came out of the project, which are outlined in paragraph 16. And in particular, if I can say to the member, 315 properties were found to be non-compliant during the project. 175 landlords were contacted, 10 were issued with compliance notices, 75 valid EPCs have now been ensure that properties, so 75 properties are now being found to have valid EPCs or put on the National Register of Exemptions. 3 letting agents have had their sites amended or repaired in one case. And we've supported 12 other local authorities as well to ensure that they've been enforcing the regulations. And 9 properties have actually been referred for some grant assistance as well. Critically, though, the project has all been about ensuring that there's this national toolkit that's ready and available for other local authorities to be able to use. And this toolkit, the BEIS were looking for information about how useful it could be, and we've been feeding back to BEIS through their lead group to actually say about some of the outcomes of the MEES regulations. So what we've been feeding back is that the MEES regulations, although a very useful set of regulations, they're not necessarily easy to use, and there are some issues with them. And we fed this back not only directly to BEIS, but also through a consultation that was issued last year. And you may want to note that Bays are wanting to actually raise the minimum energy efficiency standards to a C from April 2025 for new properties, and from 2028 for all private rented properties. And it's really important that we have a good set of regulations to be able to enforce, because we will, if that is the case, we'll have over 9,000 properties in York that will need to meet these regulations and these new minimum standards. So we've fed back to Bays some of the issues that we have found, in particular some of the issues around raising the standards in the older private rented properties to do, especially listed buildings. The issues around the fact that the fines that they are that you can serve to ensure if the people don't comply aren't of sufficient value, if I can put it that way, that they wouldn't be able to actually enforce, they wouldn't be able to fund a private rented team to actually carry out those enforcement duties. And also the level of work that they actually have to do before they go on an exemption certificate, an exemption register, I should say. So basically at the moment, if a landlord is required to carry out work, they must at least carry out work to a value of £3,500. Under the proposed regulations, that's actually going to be raised to £10,000. And again, that will mean the fact that work would actually be carried out rather than just being lumped onto an exemption register. And then because of the work that we've been doing through this project, Bays have actually issued another round of funding. And because we've been seen as quite an exemplar local authority, we have put together a consortia of local authorities who we've been, as I say, supporting in the region. And another funding bid has been made on behalf of York and 8 other local authorities, with the view, the fact that we can continue this work, supporting other local authorities to actually implement the MEES regulations, and also continue working in York to ensure that we are raising standards in the private rented sector. So we are looking to you, Executive Member, for you to note the report, the possible implications of future government proposals for the Council, support the continuation of this project, and particularly if we get this external funding for York and the 8 other local authorities, and also note the implications for carbon reduction and the development of the housing energy efficiency strategy.
Thank you for that, Ruth. There's obviously this project has obviously involved a huge amount of work already that's been really positive and already brought about some substantial improvements to homes in the private rented sector, as well as all the increased knowledge that you've been developing. I just wanted to ask a quick question and make a few more comments. The paper sets out, as you've said, all the work that's been achieved, that the work, all the things that have been done so far have achieved some significant reductions in energy use and CO2 emissions. I just wondered if you could say a little bit about the sort of examples of the sort of improvements for tenants in terms of their comfort and warmth and standard in the property that's also involved.
Yeah, basically it improves the condition, obviously, of the private rented property by raising standards from F and G, in particular, to an E. I mean, it's a journey. We'd obviously like it to get much higher than an E, and that's the reason why the government wants to raise the standards further. But it has an enormous impact on the health of a resident. Unfortunately, in particular, as I say, it affects older properties, and what you tend to find is with older properties, they are colder and they are more damp as a result of them being energy inefficient. Often you find that they have single brick extensions and therefore very, very cold. and therefore, as I say, have an impact on dampness. Obviously, energy inefficient properties mean the fact it's more energy is used to heat the home. So basically, you know, just to keep those warm temperatures inside a home, especially when it's cold outside during winter, it's difficult. And conversely, actually, when you have a poorly inefficient home during summer, it gets hotter. So you have a double whammy in the fact that both during the winter it's too cold and during the summer it's too warm. So by improving the property, improving the rating of the property, it has an enormous impact on tenants' health and well-being, and also on their purse.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, this paper really sets out some very positive work, as I've said. I'm really glad that that the approach that we've taken in York has been really positive in terms of encouraging and supporting landlords to do the right thing, to improve their standards, whilst avoiding the fines and legal enforcement that will follow from failing to do so. And it will follow if they don't do it, because we have that power. And that seems to have worked quite well so far, with no fixed penalty notices, I think you said, issued so far. And the fact that this has been done as a pilot project to improve a significant number of homes, and that we have the funding bid that can take this further. So I hope that will enable us to lead that consortium and enable still more homes in the city to be improved. I also welcome the fact this work in York will not only provide that feedback to government in terms of future policies, and will also help other councils, but it will also feed into our citywide retrofit, energy efficiency retrofit strategy that we're developing. The private rented sector in York accounts for 18% of the city's homes, and as you've explained, many of those have very low levels of energy efficiency. So improving those homes will reduce bills, improve health and comfort for renters, and also reduce carbon emissions. So working with landlords to prepare for that potential hoped for increase in legal standards by 2025 will be an important part of our strategy. But I do agree with you, it's really crucial that the government resources that properly and enables that to resource that enforcement. So with all of that in mind, I'm very happy to support the 3 recommendations as set out on page 6 at paragraph 5. So is that okay for the minutes? Yeah, okay, thank you. So moving on to the next item on the agenda is item 5, update on the Housing Energy Efficiency Programme and grant application for the Sustainable Warmth Fund. So are you going to introduce that, Michael?
Yeah, good morning. So I'm going to try and break down what is quite a growing and complex housing energy efficiency programme, provide a little bit of context in terms of what's happened since the programme started in December 2020, and opportunities that are coming our way in the future. So in December 2020, Executive allocated £1 million of a £2 million budget to undertake retrofit work on approximately 60 council homes. And since then, our ability to deliver and facilitate energy improvement works to fuel poor households in the city has grown significantly. So we've been successful in attracting 2 rounds of grant funding under the LAD programme. So under LAD 1B, we are aiming to improve 37 homes through room in the roof installation. Within the region, which includes York, so we're part of a consortia, this programme will also support the upgrade of 60 homes through loft and cavity wall installation. And in terms of progress on that, to date, we are actively pursuing and planning works to around 70 homes and are continuing to promote the opportunity within York through marketing campaigns and targeted door knocking. We are working closely with our procured supply chain and progress is very good. However, timescales are very tight, and our ambition is for 97 home energy improvement works to be undertaken by the end of September. All of these works are being undertaken in the private rented and homeowner sectors, therefore requiring significant resource to support this process. So the second funding scheme that we've been successful is LAD 2. And under LAD 2, applications could include energy efficiency improvements in both the private sector and the social housing sector. So our successful grant award will support room in the roof installation to 81 homes, loft insulation and draft proofing to 100 homes, and cavity wall installation to 60 homes in the region. In addition, we secured funding to support the retrofit of council homes and the installation of solar PV on 50 homes in York. We were additionally successful in securing grant funding to provide external wall insulation to 10 homes owned by Yorkshire Housing and install 6 air source heat pumps owned by JRHT. All works within LAD 1B and 2 will be undertaken on homes whose occupants are on low incomes, thereby helping to reduce fuel poverty, improving health and well-being, and helping York take a step forwards in its 2030 carbon neutral ambition. So just as a summary, across LAD 1B and 2, we are aiming to support over 450 energy efficiency home improvements by the end of 2021. This work is being led by a newly appointed team, which is partially funded by revenue funding from the LAD grants. The creation of this team is a big step forward in our ability to deliver on our ambitions. However, on a slightly more cautious note, the significant increase in central government grant funding has created significant capacity issues within the supply chain, both locally and nationally. We're continuing to work closely with our procured delivery partner, as well as exploring opportunities for working with new partners to ensure we deliver as many energy efficiency improvement works as possible. So looking forward, we have an opportunity to submit our largest grant application to date under the Sustainable Warmth competition. If successful, this will support works to a further 380 homes in the region in the private rented and homeowner sectors. This will take a fabric first approach, aiming to significantly reduce the energy demand of each home. So our proposed bid totals £4.6 million, with works due to take place during 2022 and the early part of 2023. Beyond that, a further grant funding opportunity is coming forward within the social housing sector. So later this month, we're expecting the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund to be launched, which may allow us to increase our ambition for retrofit of council housing through match funding. Once the grant is launched, we will assess what this means for the retrofit of council homes in the city over the coming years and beyond. So this report includes 4 recommendations. Firstly, to note the implementation and delivery of LAD 1B funding and the successful application under LAD 2. Secondly, to receive a further paper following officers' consideration of the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund when that's launched later this month. Third recommendation is to support the submission of a grant application of approximately 4.6 million under the Sustainable Warmth competition. And fourth, if we're successful in that grant application, we recommend that we'll bring a further report to executive or executive member decision to agree the acceptance of the funding alongside the procurement approach and contract award of a partner in order to deliver this, the retrofit works under that grant. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that introduction. I think, as you said, piecing together the various government funding programmes and who's eligible for what and the impacts of the government deadlines for when the work has to be completed is all very complex. And I think this paper reflects that complexity, and it sets out some of the challenges that we have to scaling up retrofit in the city to a citywide level. I think what it also demonstrates, though, is that far from scaling back on our ambitions, the council is in fact making a lot of progress with developing energy efficiency retrofit programmes in the city, and with a significant number of home improvements already underway and in the pipeline that you've just outlined. We are successfully winning funding bids. We are getting projects started on the ground, and we are submitting further funding bids to expand our programmes. I think no single set of actions, no single organisation is going to get York all the way to zero carbon target in terms of energy efficiency retrofit. And this is why we are developing the citywide strategy for wider consultation, which will include a wide range of options about how we finance retrofit, what approaches we take, how we tackle fuel poverty as part of that, and how we support homeowners and tenants alike. This is all a new area of work. Much of this is a new area of work for the council, seeking to do it at this scale and at this depth of retrofit. And it's new for homeowners and for a lot of contractors in the city. And I think, you know, we are facing challenges from Brexit and the post-COVID economy and local supply chains as well. So despite all of that, I think this paper really does highlight the progress we're making. I'd like to commend officers for all the hard work that's gone in to getting us this far. As you said, 2.6 million of government funding already, programmes on the ground for room and roof insulation and other work that will improve residents' energy bills, and the bid that's in the recommendations today for a further 4.6 million of work if we're successful with that. The work on the council homes is starting, and we'll build up a programme that will be aimed at retrofitting all our council homes over time, and that we are doing that in a way that's maximising the use of government funding by matching it with our own direct capital investment, and we're developing our own expertise in the council. Really glad to see the appointment of a housing energy efficiency manager and some other new staff along with these schemes. So on that basis, I'm very happy to approve the 4 recommendations in paragraph 3 on pages 15 and 16. As you've outlined really, Michael, but you know, including the resetting of the retrofit programme for council-owned homes, a potential funding bid for council homes from the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, which will come back in a further paper, and also the current bid that's ready to go immediately, I believe, to the Sustainable Warmth competition, which would be for another £4.6 million. So yes, very happy to approve all of this work. Thank you. So I'm not aware of any urgent business as the next item. So on that basis, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much.